properly in a sec. Okay, so hopefully you can still see my screen and you can see my presentation, which is about to reappear like so. So there we are. Well, I'm Mr. Stevens. I'll reappear in a moment so you can see my face properly, but welcome to a taster session, your first of today for English Language and Literature A-Level, okay? So as it says here, good morning and welcome. Now, this is one of those PowerPoints where it's actually been made for me. And it's not quite done in the way that I would like, but don't worry, we're going to get through it together. And it's going to give you a good introduction as to what the course is like. And as it says here, all right, it might be helpful if you've got a pen and a bit of paper with you, because you might want to write some details down. Now, don't worry, because the documents that I talk about and the things I talk about will be placed in the Teams channel for you to find afterwards. So don't worry about that, okay? But if you could mute yourself and turn off your camera at this point, and once I hop out of here, you can use the chat box for communication once the session started. And I'll keep hopping in and out of my PowerPoint here so that I can have a look at your comments. And I think what I'll do now is just check that we're all in the right place. I will exit that. And I'm going to go back into regular Teams for a second so you can all see me before we get going. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Now, at this point, you should see me, my smiling face looking at you. And it's nice to see you. Now, I'm guessing I've got a real mix of students joining me today. There'll be some that I know very well from Shenley, and there'll be some students that are going to be new to Shenley and would like to join us. In either case, you're very welcome. It's fantastic. So if you're a name and face out there that I'd know, it's lovely to see you again. If you're brand new today, well, a warm welcome. And I'd like to think that you're going to end up here at Shenley, because I'm very, very fond of the school. I'm sure that you will be as well. And I suppose the first thing I should do is just say well done for choosing English, Lang and Lit as a potential A-level choice. You know, I absolutely love this course, all right? And I'll just tell you a bit about why that is. I love the fact that you get the chance to study English literature, study some great works of art, great works of literature. If you enjoy reading and have just enjoyed that process of getting into detail, the characters, the themes, the ideas, empathizing with the situation of the characters that you've done already with the books you've read at GCSE and at Key Stage 3 and even back in, you know, primary school, it's the right subject for you. So having that real interest in characters and people and stories, that's the bedrock of this course, okay? But there's, of course, a lot more to it than that. English Language and Literature is kind of like a course that studies the linguistic side of English, but it uses these texts and it uses the literature as a way of doing that. So if you think of it as being an English language course that uses literature, that's probably a better way to understand it than it actually being joint language and literature. It isn't really that, although the name would suggest it. It's the study of the English language and understanding how our language works and how we use it and the effect it has on people, on speakers and listeners and so on, and readers, using great text as a way of doing that. And the great thing about this course, why I love it, is it not only helps your technical understanding of English, it'll help you understand about the different functions and the way in which the grammar and the organization of our language works, which will make you a better speaker and writer as well, and help you understand books like this better. It'll help all your other subjects. But the other reason it's a great thing is that it's really, I suppose the best thing, it's really it's almost a scientific approach that we take to being able to deconstruct and break writing and English apart. It makes you a really good analytical and thinker, a good processor of language and the world around you. And it also gives you a chance to be creative. Part of the course will allow you to write things of your own. And I'll take you through the course structure in a moment, and the PowerPoint will tell us just how it will work and how it pans out over the 2 years. Okay, so there's my introduction. I hope that's a nice place to start. As you can probably see, I'm really enthusiastic about it. I currently teach the year 12 version of this course, and I'm going to be taking that class through to year 13. Now, I haven't got my timetable yet, so I don't know if I'll be having a year 12 class next year, but I have taught this course for about 5 or 6 years now, so, or longer than that actually, but running, I mean. Okay, so there's a fair chance that it might come to me again, but I don't know. But the other thing I should say, whether you know Shenley or not, is that we have a very, very experienced and a very successful A-level English team, both for English Lang and Lit, this particular course, and for English literature as well. All right, all of our teachers have been teaching for a long time in a good way. All right, and we've all delivered the course and we've had some very successful results going back over the years. Now, hopefully, when you begin this course in September, for you, it will mean a proper, I suppose, a launch pad and to go through all 2 years without a break. And we're just fingers crossed that we're not going to have any more disruption, any more lockdowns, any more online teaching. You know, if it comes and it happens, well, it does. But the aspiration is to give you the full on, you know, the full fat experience, so to speak, all right, of the course, delivering it all in lessons and giving you the chance to make that journey as a group alongside two of us, two teachers. The course will be divided between two of us that will deliver it to you. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going to put my chat box up and I'm going to invite any comments or questions so far. So is there anything that you'd like a bit more help with at this point, or a bit more support with? Have I not covered anything? Now I'm going to go through the whole course in detail using the PowerPoint in a minute. But just as an introduction, would anyone like to know or ask anything to me before we begin? Okay. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to take your register. So forgive me doing this at the same time, but please do type in any questions now. And I am going to, at this point, download my attendance list. It's really nice to see so many of you here. There's over 20 of you that have joined me, and that's thrilling. So thank you. And I hope this is starting to make sense to you. All right. Nice to see you. Good morning. What a morning it is as well. That doesn't happen too often, does it? What happened last night? Right. Okay. I can't see. Let me go back in my chat. Are there any questions appearing? I can't see any. Maybe I'm saying it all okay. Right. Shall we move on then? Now, you've seen me holding up text like this, and you're probably keen to know what the books are that you'll study. Well, I think it's fair to say that, you know, that we've probably got a very good idea what they'll be, because we do choose in advance what texts we're going to study. But it might change because different teachers do have some different preferences. Now, I'll give you an example. One of the books you have to study is a collection of poetry of 15 poems, for example. A similar arrangement to the way you get an anthology of poems in year 10 and 11. But these go further. It's not quite such a random collection as what you have like for Power and Conflict or Love and Relationships that you probably would have done on your GCSE. We choose a particular poet. Now, if you were to have, for example, say Mrs. Thompson next year, or you were to have Mrs. Hazel or Mrs. Pledger, they would probably do with you Carol Ann Duffy as the poet, and you get 15 poems all by her from the book called Meantime. Now, if I teach you next year, my preference is to do Seamus Heaney, and there's a collection of 15 poems that are by him, and that's just purely my personal choice. I know him, I prefer his work, and I will teach that with greater passion to you, I suppose. And that's what we want. You want a teacher that's going to really love what they're teaching to you. So just bear in mind that when I start going through the PowerPoint and start telling you about the books, it's probably about 90% certain they're the ones you'll do. Now, I will mention this as well. Now, what you can see here is the anthology of works about Paris. Now, if I flick this, you'll get the idea that it's a very comprehensive document indeed. And there are all sorts of things in here, everything from comic book pages and photograph and blog pages, transcripts. There's all sorts of different things in here, okay? Even guidebooks and maps, as you might be able to see. Everybody will get one of these anthologies. And what this is a collection, a very large collection of 20 or so different texts all gathered into one book, into one anthology. Now, Paris is the theme that connects them all together. They're all written about or in or connected to life in Paris, although they're all written in English. So Paris is just the overarching theme that joins them all up. This anthology is one of the texts that you study for your exam in year 13. Okay. Maybe I should point out as well, if I haven't already, that of course A-level English language and literature, like a true A-level course, is a 2-year commitment. You begin in September of year 12 and you end in May and June of year 13. And it's a 2-year journey to get you towards those final exams. There are 2 final exams at the end of year 13 and 1 piece of coursework to do as well, an investigation. Okay, the coursework, as you'll see in a moment, is worth 20% of your final overall A-level. The 2 exams are worth 80%. Okay, so a good chunk of the marks you will learn in class with your teacher, and they are allowed to give you some constructive feedback as that coursework gets done. But I'll come to that in a moment. All right. Now, a bit more about the Paris Anthology. When I refer to that later in the PowerPoint, you'll now know what it is. And of course, there are other texts like plays such as A Streetcar Named Desire, magnificent play, one of the greatest plays of the 20th century. It's a privilege to study it. Magnificent piece. and The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Some of you may know the more recent film with Leonardo DiCaprio in, the Baz Luhrmann adaptation. But film aside, again, one of the great pieces of modern literature of the 20th century. A staggering novel, all right, in its depth, complexity, its emotion. You'll love it, all right? I certainly do. And this big collection of Paris. And like I said, the poets as well. So that might give you a flavour about some of the books. I'm going to start the PowerPoint going through it now, and that goes in a bit more detail. Now, once again, before I launch into my PowerPoint, having now been speaking for more than 10 minutes, does anybody have any questions or queries about what I've said so far? I'll keep giving you a chance to join me. Sir, are the exams open book? Good question. It's a yes and a no. Some elements of the exam are open book, some are not. All right. I know that's not dreadfully helpful. Now, for example, paper 1 does have open book sections. The poems that you do, yes. Oh, Farry's just asked if I've done the register. Yes, I have. I did it about 5 minutes ago. I'll probably download the register list again at the end. Okay. In fact, I might as well do it now, mightn't I? Doesn't hurt to do that. I'll do it in a sec, actually. All right, so let's answer this question. So as you'll see in a moment, I think it's on the PowerPoint, but as I was saying earlier, I didn't make this particular one myself. This is one done to help me just to deliver it to you today. It might say on there, but to reassure you, some sections are open book. The poems, for example, when you do those in that exam, they give you one of the poems, the other one you refer to is from memory. So you get some help with that. What else am I going to say? Streak. I'm just trying to think. Sorry, I'm going off the top of my head. When you do the Paris, they give you the extracts that they want you to write about. So yes, that is open book. You don't actually take the whole of that in. They choose 2 pieces at random. It's that kind of thing. So not all of it is open book, but there are substantial chunks of it that are. In fact, The Lovely Bones, which is the novel that you'll study, is I'm trying to think, that's done from an extract base. So you get given the extract and you have the book as well to help you, but it's a blank copy. So there's probably quite a lot to take on board here. I think it's fair to say that if you imagine that some sections that will become clear are open book, some aren't, the way in which this course works, the open book element is not really an advantage or a disadvantage, because it's about analysing and showing an oversight and a critical insight into these texts. And kind of having them with you is kind of a bonus, but it's not going to help your overall understanding. You'll have built up that understanding in year 12 and 13. Okay, having these is just the icing on the cake. Really, you've got to take the knowledge in with you. Okay, so I've got another question. Will we do The Handmaid's Tale? Now, The Handmaid's Tale is not on the Langan Lit course, but wait for it. All right. It could be something that you choose to study for coursework as part of your investigation, all right? So long as it's not a text that you've studied, you have in the coursework the ability to choose texts, either fiction or non-fiction, or to compare both in the coursework. But The Handmaid's Tale is a set text on the English literature course, which is, of course, a separate A-level, and attending that taster session later might help you decide between English Lit and English Langan Lit, okay? Of course, the interesting thing about the Langlet course is that it has this creative writing element. When you write about Gatsby, you'll be writing something creative, all right? You'll be writing something that is your own, all right? Which is very exciting. And there's, of course, that doesn't fit into. Sorry, I'm being interrupted. That doesn't fit into the English. Sorry, into the English literature course. Sorry, I've just had students come in and join me in an empty room. Never mind. Right, it's empty now. Let's have a look. Are the 20 texts going to be about Paris for us, or is that just an example? Well, Gracie, if I show you this, here's the anthology, look, and you can see that it's got a large number of texts in it, okay? As a class, you study all of them. You do the whole lot. All right, not all in one go, obviously. Over a course of a term, we go through them and make sense of them. And some of them are very straightforward and simple, like this. Some of them are a lot more detailed and complicated, like that one, for example. But you've got a lovely variety of different sort of stuff, like this extract from a travel book, look, and they're all connected to Paris. So we study through them. When you sort of learn all of them, and then in the exam at the end of the day, in year 13, they choose 2 for you to write and compare. Okay, so we don't know which they will choose. You've got to know all of them, and they will then throw 2 at you and say, right, choose those 2, please. Write about those 2 for me, and that's what the examiner will say. All right. Okay, hope that's clear. Any other questions before I move us along to the PowerPoint this morning? I've got about half an hour left to go through that. Can't see any more coming in. I'll give you 30 seconds to type in case there is anything. Take a bit of a breather. I've been hammering through this, I know. A lot to take on board. Now, the most effective thing I can say really is to, if you notice my own enthusiasm, because I really do love teaching this course, and I really do. I would have loved to have studied it myself. I actually did English literature A-level because English Language Lit didn't exist back in the 80s. Can you believe it? When I did my A-levels, this is a relatively new course. It's been about for about sort of 20, 25 years, but it's really good. I really enjoy it. And just to point out, there isn't an advantage in doing the English Lit or the Language Lit. Universities will accept both of them with the same amount of I suppose, open-mindedness, acceptance. In fact, for some courses, it might be that this slightly more forensic and scientific approach might be better. If you're maybe combining an English subject with a science, for example, or sciences, you might prefer this one. It might fit your skill set. Or if you really want to do that creative and you're looking at a very much a creative degree subject potentially for university, then the Langlet might be the one to go for. But I can't choose for you, of course. I can give you advice, and your other teachers can. Ultimately, it has to be a decision that you make in consultation, well, obviously with yourself, parents, carers, and speak to Mr. Greenhalgh, Mrs. Brooker, Mr. Hall, the sixth form team, who are the experts at helping you steer towards those final choices. Okay, I'm biased because I really like this. Well, I like the English Lit as well, but I think they're great. But then I would do, wouldn't I? Right, there are no more questions. Let's go on. Now, at this point, I'm going to put my PowerPoint back up. I'm going to share the screen. You might want your pen and paper ready at this point. Okay, I'm guessing that you can still see me. It might be helpful for me. I'll keep my screen on. Doesn't matter. You're going to be able to see me. Now, hopefully you can see this. Now, let's get this up as well. You may still be able to see me. You may not. I don't know. But here is the PowerPoint. Okay, so let's get started. Right, now, there's the rules. You know not to be naughty for me. I'm sure I can trust you. Don't want to put anyone on the naughty step. Okay, there we are. So first things first. Well, I've taken the register online. You say, oh, now look at this. Why you're considering English Language and Literature A-level? I didn't do that. Well, I suppose we could, couldn't we? Let's hop out of it again. Right, why don't you type it in for me? All right. What's going to interest you about English Language and Lit? Let's break the ice a little bit. Type in something that appeals to you about it. No one is allowed to say me. I'm sure I'm good fun. No, seriously. Don't, if you like your English teachers, if you're a Shenley student, that's great. But what is it about the subject that appeals? Type away. Let me have a look, see what comes up. Let's share a few things. Could be that my chat's frozen, actually. No one's typed in it for ages. Oh, here we go. Creative writing. There is, Gracie, an element of creative writing, and the whole of the coursework is, it's not creative as such, but it's all your own focus. You decide what you're going to study, okay, which is really exciting. The creative aspect, yeah, there is a creative element. Don't be too sidetracked by it, though. I mean, it is there, but it's not a huge amount of the course, all right? It's one aspect of one of the final exam questions, but it is there, okay? I'm thinking, I love creative writing and linguistics. Well, the linguistic side of it is highly significant, okay? The way in which you come to learn about the different functions of language. We learn about all the different technical elements of grammar, some of which you might already know, some of which will be new to you, but we imagine that we're starting from scratch. So yeah, it's really interesting. We see things like deixis, which is the placement of language, temporal deixis, which is the time about things in language, spatial deixis, which is the space and the places that are described and how that functions. And the deictic center, who is the speaker, the writer at the heart of a text. We learn these technical pieces. It's actually very easy, but you've already done some of these, like the link that you've learned about. What we've done. Well, you've done things like in poetry, caesura and onomatopoeia. These technical words, they're all pretty good. The ability to develop language lit. Oh, my light's going off. Can I get my filter on? Forgive me. I've just got to go and put the lights back on. I can see some comments coming in. We'll filter these through quickly. That's better. I haven't gone away, don't worry. What else have we got? Creative and deeply analysed. Now that analysis is absolutely there. It's a fundamental part. That's the big difference between English Lit and English Language Lit. It's the linguistic analysis, that forensic approach. But don't be intimidated by that, because it's not difficult. You've just got to learn how to do it a bit more. And that's part of the course. The ability to develop both Lang and Lit skills, I would appreciate that. It absolutely does that. And it does that by studying language, or rather using the text to study language. You're studying the English language, but you're using the text to do it. Okay, that's probably the best way I can say. Right, I can see there's some good stuff. Want to study the English language a bit more? You will get all of those things. All right, so that was a nice start. Well, let's go back to our PowerPoint and let me take you through that. Okay, here we go. Am I sharing the screen again? I am. Hoi hoi, wait for it. I'm losing my way. It's a while since I've done this on Teams. Here we go. Right, here's the course overview. Right, now there you can see some of those texts I was talking about. All right. Now, Carol Ann Duffy's Meantime, well, you might do that. You study 15 poems out of that, or it could be Seamus Heaney's poetry as well, of which the special collection of 15 is done. The Lovely Bones, a magnificent book, a very, very emotional and moving book, and a very strange book by Alice Sebold, a wonderful book that we do, and we read that in year 12. We do the poetry in year 12, and we also do the Paris Anthology that I referred to in year 12. Then in year 13, we broaden things out. We do the coursework, the NEA, which is the non-examination assessment. That's the technical word for coursework. That's quite a substantial piece. It works out at about 3,000 words. That might sound like a lot, but when you consider you're doing that over an entire term in your own time, under the supervision of a teacher, that really isn't very much at all. You'll know that if you've written a long essay, you're already at 500-600 words. It's not that much. It really isn't. It works out about 5 sides of type size 12. It's not as much as you think. So don't be intimidated by it. And then moving into year 13, The Great Gatsby, of course, by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and A Streetcar Named Desire, by Tennessee Williams. 2 wonderful pieces of American literature that give an insight into American culture, society, how America was changing in the 20th century. Gatsby was written about 100 years ago. Streetcar Named Desire comes from the 1940s, and it's actually then filmed in the 1950s. Tremendously powerful, and again, very emotional pieces. You'll absolutely love them if you don't know them. All right. So there's those. What else have we got? Now, here are the exams that I was talking about, and this tells you which bits are open book and closed book. All right. I know some of you were asking this. Here we go. Now, at the end of year 13, there are 2 exams. The first exam is called Telling Stories, and that's just the way in which it's just themed together. As you can see at the bottom, it's a 3-hour exam. Now, you'll find that your A-levels are all challenging exams. When you think about it, they've got to test 2 years worth of learning over the course of 2 or 3 papers. So they do tend to be longer than GCSE exams. Now, I don't want anybody to worry or be intimidated by that at this point, all right? You will get used to it. You will, by the end of it, be more than ready to cope with that exam, because in reality, it seems a long time, but you're just going to be answering 3 questions in 3 hours. You're just writing 3-hour-long answers in a row, okay? It's not as hard as it might seem, so don't be scared. We're going to help you with it. You'll build your stamina up, your match fitness. It's like training for a marathon. You'll get there by the time you've got to the end of year 13. So it's worth 40% of your A-level. And of course, the other exam will be the other 40 and the coursework 20. But let's have a look at it. Now, at the top, you can see you've got remembered places, 40 marks. Now, this is based on the Paris Anthology. Now, this is closed book. All right, you don't have the anthology with you, but they will give you an extract in order to analyze. In fact, they'll give you 2 to look at. All right. Now, section B is Imagined Worlds. Now, this is the Lovely Bones. Now, that is an open book exam. You do have the book with you, but that's, as I said, of some use to you. But the question they set is based on an extract as well. So you really do have to know the whole book inside out. All right. And having the book with you can be helpful. It can also be tricky. It could be a banana skin if you haven't learnt it well enough and you're sort of flicking through the pages trying to find. No, you don't want to do that. You want to know the Lovely Bones so well that having the book with you helps you go to the quotes that are going to help you and helps you with that odd little detail. But really, you know the book well enough to be able to answer it. And having the book with you is a bonus. And I'd say that's true on the poems as well. Okay. Now, the poems are, you write about 2 poems and they are open book. You do have them with you, but only 2 of those poems are ones you have to write. Okay, so really, you study 15, only 2 of them are ever going to be useful to you. It's a bit of a shame, really, but you get the pleasure of studying 15 poems, but you write about 2 at the end of the day. And of course, we won't know which 2 they are until you open that exam at the end of year 13. Now, this PowerPoint will be in Teams for you to share and look at. But at this point, I'll break out just to have a quick look at the chat to see if there is any questions appearing, or if there are any questions appearing, and I've noticed that there are. So let's have a look. Megan. Oh, that's fine. I see you've written that in. That's great. Okay. Now then, has anyone got any questions about what I've said so far about potentially the first of those exams? That exam's called Telling Stories. I'll give it 30 seconds in case you do. Hopefully this is all nice and clear. Not scary. Super duper. I'm guessing I'm being super clear. Now, question. Will all those exams be in one go? Well, no, you won't do them on the same day. But what happens is, just like with your GCSE, well, you don't know because you haven't done GCSE exams, do you? Goodness me. You get your exams all in one period. If you imagine that once you get to about May in year 13, normal lessons will end and you'll go off to study for your exam leave. Okay. Now, during that period between the middle of May and the middle of June, a timetable of all your exams will be given to you. Now, you'll probably get 2 or 3 exams for each A-level. So you're probably going to be studying for a grand total of between 6 and 10, maybe exams overall. And over the course of 2, 3, 4 weeks, that's not a huge amount. If you're unlucky, you might have 2 in one day, but they'll be for different subjects. But realistically, the English ones tend to be about 10 days apart. So you might get one like the middle of May and then another one, say 10 days later towards the end of May. Okay, hope that's clear. How many mocks will we do in year 12? Well, we will do 1 set of mocks at the end of year 12. All right, when I say the end, we usually do them around about May or June. Okay. And we do a practice of 1 of the papers because in year 12 we've only studied for paper 1. We haven't got ready for paper 2 yet. So there'll be 1 to answer your question, Naomi. Okay. In class, your teacher will set essays regularly. If you imagine that every 10 days to 2 weeks, you'll probably be writing an essay in your own time. But that's true of all A-level subjects, having to study by yourself significantly. All right, that's building up that match fitness, that marathon fitness I was talking about. You see, if you've done a question on all of these regularly, right from the beginning of year 12, you'll be fine by the end of year 13. You'll be more than ready for it. Okay. Any other questions before I go on? So that's paper 1. How many exams in total? 2. All right. There are 2 exams for real at the end of year 13. Telling Stories, paper 1, 3 hours. And the second paper, as you'll see, is 2.5. I'm going to go through the second paper in a moment. All right. Well, questions seem to have been answered. Oh, hang on. Are there any mocks in year 13 as well? Yes, Eloise, there are. There are mocks in usually late January or early February of year 13. And that really is a question of, by that point, you will have learned all of your books. We'll have covered all the text. And at that point, our focus will switch from learning stuff afresh and learning it new to revision and exam technique. And we will spend February, March, April building up and revising for those 2 final exams. So that, again, you're absolutely prepared for it. That's the structure of the course, okay? So there will be mocks in year 13. Of course, there would have to be. You need to know how you're getting on, and so do we. And of course, if anybody trips up and writes, shows they're really perhaps struggling a bit and there's a bit of a banana skin, it gives us plenty of time to put it right by doing them at that point in year 13. Okay. Any more questions? Then I'll move on to the next exam. Right, I like that. Let's go on. What I must do is, I haven't done this for a while, haven't I? Let me get my PowerPoint back up. Here we go. Right, let's have a look at paper 2. Now, paper 2 is called Exploring Conflict. Slightly shorter. You'll spot this is 2 hours, 30 minutes. Not quite as long as the other one, but you'll notice that it just has 2 questions. All right. There are actually 3 things you've got to do, but there are 2 questions, main questions within that. Once again, this is worth 40% of your A-level. So each of the exams is equal. They're worth 40% each, leaving that final 20% for coursework that we'll cover in a moment. Now, the first part of this exam has got the creative writing. Now, this is going to be based on The Great Gatsby, and you will have to do some writing based on Gatsby. All right, a piece of imaginative writing of your own. For example, they might give you a scene from the book and they might get you to rewrite it from a different character's point of view, or rewrite it from a different perspective, or to look at it from a different angle. You know, so you're going to have to bring one of those stories to life in your own words. And then you actually have to write and analyze what you did. You evaluate your own writing. It's a brilliant question. It's a really, well, not an easy way, but, it's a really good way of being able to earn some marks. So that's exciting. Now, the second part of this is called dramatic encounters. Now, this is about the drama, the plays that I was talking about. Now, A Streetcar Named Desire will be the text that you do, almost certainly. All right, they actually give you choice of 2 questions, and it's open book. So you've got the whole play there. The questions are usually like a theme-based one and a character one. So you might get a question. If you think about what you may have studied for an Inspector Calls, for example, in year 12, in year 11, very similar sort of thing. So you'll study the play and it might say something like, what do you notice about the relationship between Stanley and Stella in the play? All right, and they might give you a particular quote to start you off on that. You get the idea? Or what do you notice about the theme of hope in A Streetcar Named Desire? Okay, so then there we go. Hopefully that's now clear. And again, that's open book. So all the quotes are there for you to take. You don't need to know the quotes off by heart. Of course, you're going to get them in the play. But you've obviously, the best students who are best prepared know the text so well, they're not having to flick backwards and forwards all the way through. They know the play well enough to write their answer and plan it from scratch. All right. They don't need to sit there trawling for quotes for half an hour because obviously you won't have time. Now, once again, I'm going to escape from there and I'm going to invite, hopefully you can see me again. Are there any questions about that second exam or potentially how that might work in year 13 for you? It's all gone quiet. Maybe that's a good thing. It's a good PowerPoint. I wasn't criticizing it. It's just done slightly differently to how I would do it myself. Time is moving on. So I'm pleased there are no questions. I think you might want to know a bit about the coursework. So should we have a look at that? And here's how you earn your over 20%. Now I love this because if you think, how easy is that? It's not easy, but how good is it that your actual A level, I mean, not your GCSE, your A level, you do a big chunk of it, a fifth of it, you work for yourself. It's a remarkable opportunity. All right. When, you might be aware of this, A-level courses were reviewed about 7 or 8 years ago. And for a while, the shouldn't say the government, but the overseers of exams were pushing to remove coursework from a lot of, and even remove some subjects from the A-level range, if you like. English teachers fought very hard to keep coursework because we think it's important, all right, and I do. Not because it's just simply a moneymaker for marks, but it's an important part of getting you ready for university, all right, or for the wider world, because when you think about it at university, you don't have things running in quite the way they do in schools. A lot of the responsibility is then completely over to you. You go to lectures, you have seminars, but big chunks of your learning are about you going away and functioning by yourself. All right. So I think it's important. And there's a question there. Why did they want to take away coursework? I'll be quite honest. All right. This is me speaking personally, not professionally. They don't trust us. They didn't trust us. They thought that we were making life too easy for students and that you were getting too high grades because we were helping you too much. All right. Not true. But if I'm honest, that was the rationale, that students were, and that they didn't trust you, that students were cheating. And yes, there are always 1 or 2 students out of the thousands that take them every year that might get someone to help them. But we know what you are capable of. We have a very, very finely, teachers get a very good radar of what is and is not a year 12 and 13 students' work. We know when someone's taking the mickey and we know when they've had a bit of help. It stands out a mile. All right. So we didn't really need to not be trusted. But anyway, that kind of explains it. Maybe that's me being a bit cynical. That's my personal point of view. All right. They had concerns about grade consistency. They had concerns about the delivery of coursework, shall we say. All right. I should say no more. All right. Okay, so coursework. You probably want to know a bit about it. Shall I put that up? Let's have a look, shall we? Here we go. Am I sharing again? Oh, I've done something wrong. I've not used Teams for weeks before this. Here we go. Back up again. Whoopee. Right, okay. Now then, the non-exam assessment. Oh, I love this. All right. Now, this is 20%. A fifth of your marks are based on what you write yourself. Now, you can see, look at the bottom task. A personal investigation that explores a specific technique or theme in both literary and non-literary discourse. So you have to choose something literary, which is a traditional literature text, a play, a poem, a novel, or a graphic novel, and then a non-literary discourse. So that means non-fiction, maybe speech appearing in film or television, or in a newspaper, or a magazine, or on a website. Okay, so it's the way in which language alters and changes and is different across different types of writing in English. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. Okay, now what's assessed? Well, you can see it's called making connections, and that you have to investigate a chosen theme. Now you choose this. Now, to give you an example, a student in the past has done, for example, the way in which the English works inside a romantic novel, say Jane Austen novels, and they've contrasted that with the way in which language is used romantically in rom-com films. Or someone even did the way in which speech patterns worked with characters or people speaking dialogue in Love Island, believe it or not. I know that sounds crazy, but it was a proper investigation. Transcript, the student took the transcripts of what people were saying, looked at what they were getting, the flirting and the suggestion and so on, and they compared that to the completely different way in which language and conversations between, you know, lovers or couples was presented in a book. All right, so that's the kind of thing, but it's on this analytical level I was talking about. All right, so you look at the different ways of the, you analyze the language, and we then mark that for you. Okay. Now, the way that it works is that you go, we help you set up the task, and when we're all happy that the task is good, we send the task to the exam board and they say yes or no, you can do that. Now, once you've got the okay, you probably start the process at the end of year 12, and then during the autumn term in year 13, you go about writing it. Now, on 2 occasions, you're allowed to hand it in and get some help. Now, we're not allowed to mark it and write all over it in terms of, you know, loads of detailed feedback. We can't do that, but we're allowed to give you structured verbal feedback. We can give you, you know, we can talk to you and give you advice, and we can put some pinpoints on there of suggestions, but we're obviously not allowed to go too far and to help you actually, you know, tell you what to write word for word. So it's about being able to give sensible, constructive feedback, and there are 2 windows to do that. So you'd probably do it when you've maybe worked on it for like, I don't know, a month or so, and then maybe you'll do it when you're coming up towards the end of it and you want that final help in getting it over the line. Okay, so I hope that's clear. I'll pop out of that again. Now let's see if there are any questions about that, because I imagine that there might be. I'll stop sharing. It's me again. Any questions about the coursework? Now I'm going to move on to the final part of this presentation in a moment. We'll finish at 10, but I'll just take any questions about that, because now I've had a good chance to go through the whole course with you and give you a flavour of what's in store. No one's typing anything. I will give you 10 more seconds or so, because you may be reacting now. Here we go. Naomi, do we have to do a book versus the film, or something going to be book versus book? Well, what it has to be, Naomi, is a literary book, meaning a piece of literature. So that's your traditional play, poem, novel, all right, or something of significant literary merit. So a proper book or text of some kind that was originally written to be appreciated and enjoyed as a work of literature and a work of reading. And you have to compare that with something different, so non-literary. That might be a script, a website, non-fiction text, magazine, newspaper, video game. It's something different to that. So that's the way it works. It's 2 different sorts of English, literary and non-literary. Okay. Book versus transcript, that's exactly the kind of thing, yeah. Obviously, we work with you to make sure, and the exam board give us the check. The other thing I didn't mention as well is that when we have marked them, we send them off to the exam board. They check them to make sure that our marking is not too high or low. All right, so they are moderated by an external source. They get sent off to an examiner that looks at them. All right, we've never had our marks queried, by the way. All right, we've always been found to be accurate, but there's always an extra safety net there in case you worried that I was going to be Mr. Mean, not give you too high a mark, or Mr. Generous. And as English teachers in school, we check each other's marking as well. You know, when we do coursework, I mark one maybe, and I might pass it to Mrs. Thompson, and she double checks it, and so on. We all mark each other's work to reach an agreement. Any other questions about that coursework before I bring us towards the end of today with our task I'm going to give you? I know, homework already. Can you believe it? Right, I better do that because there's only 5 minutes left and I don't want you to be late. So let me get to this PowerPoint. Now, do not panic about this. I promise you don't have to panic. All right. Now, we're not going to chuck you in the Tower of London if this doesn't go brilliantly, but we want to sort of get you in the mood and give you a flavour of what the kind of work you might do in the course. And also, let's just go to it. Hang on, have a look. Let's just find it. Here we are. Oh, look at this. The lights have gone off here at this point. Hang on a minute. Blah, 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 blah. Transition test. Here we go. I'm going to put this up. Can you see this again? I hope so. Right, and I'm going to put my lights on again so you can see me. Now, we have had a large amount of time this morning to go through the course. There was meant to be time for you to have a go at doing a little bit of writing now, but you'll be relieved to know that I've been speaking for so long that we've run out of time of that. Now, this task is one that we would like you to have a go at over the summer. And it's to get you used to, you know, just to introduce you to the kind of ways that you're going to work. And the other thing is, it will give us a flavour of your English when you come in. Now, for some of you, it's very easy because we taught you in year 10 and 11 and the last 5 years. But we know for a lot of you, we don't know you at all. And we want to be able to just get a feeling of what kind of writer that you are. Now, as I said, no one is going to get marked with good, bad, or, you know, get graded on this. That's not the point. It's mainly to help you, actually. All right. It will help us and it will help give us a flavour. But we know that that's just a beginning. But it's interesting and it's valuable for us as well. So that's the rationale why we're setting you this. All right. Now, what you need to do for task 1 is to read the book, The Lovely Bones. All right. By Alice Sebold. Make detailed notes on the following categories: characters, themes, and plot. And by the time we come back in September, we'd like you to bring those notes in. They could be handwritten or typed. All right, now we're going to get you to do an assessment in class on The Lovely Bones when we come in September, but it's not an exam. All right, again, it's just a baseline assessment so we can see just what kind of writer you are and just take the temperature of where your skills are. And it's more a kind of, it's like a diagnosis, if you like. What are your individual strengths and weaknesses? Where are we going to have to give you the most help? Where can we take for granted? Oh, you've got that. All right. So don't have nightmares about it. I promise you're not being judged. It's an assessment and it's just done as a baseline. All right. And it's to help you get used to what's going to come over the next 2 years. Now, The Lovely Bones. Well, the reason we get you to read it is, of course, it's the first big book you do in year 12. It's essential that you do, and it gives us a head start. If everyone comes in September having read it, we don't have to worry about having to read it all word for word in class. We get a chance to study it and take an overview because we just don't have the time to read a whole novel word for word in class in the way we might have done at GCSE. Okay, so The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. You need to get yourself a copy and to read it. Now, you can get a copy from any bookshop, from Amazon. You can go online, get a used copy, but you do need a copy because if it's your own one, you can write in it and make your own notes in it. Okay. When you do it in the exam, we will provide you with a blank one for the exam, but it's best if you get your own. So I'm sorry you've got to fork out a few pennies, but we think it's best if you have your own one because then you can start to make notes. And I know the time's about to run out, so let me just say, task 2, you also study at Paris, which contains a wide range of text. Now, read the following extract carefully. I'm about to show it you, and then you've got to do a bit of creative writing. What we want you to do is look at this Eurostar advert and then change the transcript into something different. We want you to turn it into a blog called When in Paris. Now, a blog, of course, is an online diary, a biographical log. Let's have a look at this extract before we go. Look at this. It's a transcript. Now, you might be aware of this. All of these things in brackets are pauses. Now, I've got to finish in half a minute, so I'm going to do this really quickly. Music plays. Maybe you'll go left. Maybe you'll go right. Maybe you'll go up, down, round and round. Maybe you'll go here or there, to this place, that place. Maybe you'll meet him, her, Perhaps them. Hopefully not him. Maybe you see this. Hear that? Eat this. Maybe you'll get lost. Maybe it'll rain. You shelter here and this will happen. Maybe it won't rain. Instead, you'll go there and fall in love with this. Stories are waiting. And you can see that all of those things in brackets are pauses. The numbers are the pauses in the narration. Okay, and the bits in italics are descriptions of what's happening on screen. Now imagine you've seen that advert. Now when you find the task off Teams, you'll be able to look at that yourself. And what we want you to do, you can see for task 2, is to turn that into a blog. Imagine you travelled to Paris yourself and was writing that out as if you'd actually experienced all of those things, been and seen or done those things. Okay, it's quite interesting that. You're going to have to use your imagination a bit. If that's a bit worrying, don't panic. Nothing is a wrong answer here. It's all about how you interpret it and have a go. And it's going to give us a flavour of what your skills are like. I've overrun by 1 minute. So I'm going to come out of that here, put myself on screen and begin the process of saying goodbye. Now, sorry, sir, do we do one task? You do both. All right. Now, hopefully you can find them. If you're stuck, get in touch with school, with Mr. Greenhalgh or whatever, and say, I can't find the English task for Langlet. We'll point you in the right direction. For those of you that are Shenley students, you can email me myself and I can send you the right way as well. Now, at this point, I've overrun by a couple of minutes. I'm sorry it was a bit of a rush, but we had a lot to do, didn't we? I hope that does make you feel good about the course and you've enjoyed that. If you choose to do the subject, it's a big well done. Even if you don't, well done as well for coming this morning. Lovely to see you. And I hope that this is something that might be of value to you for your A-level choices. Have a great day, everybody. See you soon. Thank you.